Guys, Jay Steinley's on. I don't know about other people, but I wasn't able to dial in by phone, so I'm back to my computer. Sorry to interrupt.
Devon, this is Matt Mitchell. One more time, I see a few names who have yet to pop up. Can I maybe ask you send the email to one or two more folks if you haven't already?
Yes, that's fine.
One of those is Deb Drum, our director. That's ddrum@pbcgov.org.
Matt, I'm actually here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Mike and I are masked and together in the same room.
Okay.
Say everyone, we are live right now. So just wanted to let everyone know.
Thank you.
All right, and the only one I don't see, and Deb, maybe you know, is Ed Chase. I believe he should be on the list.
He should be, and he's providing a report, so we need him.
Devon, if you can do that, that is E as in Ed, Chase, CHASE, @pbcgov.org.
Okay, got it. Resending it right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, it's E Chase, not Ed Chase. It's ECHASE @pbcgov.org.
Correct.
Hey, Commissioner, we are live. If you'd like
Okay,
to
great. Excellent. Well, that's given people time to get into the meeting. So with that, I want to welcome everybody and call the October 20th, 2021 virtual Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative Steering Committee meeting to order, and welcome everybody. Delighted you're all here with us this afternoon. I'm looking forward to a lot of really interesting and exciting updates. I did want to send out a shout out to the folks over at the Florida Inland Navigation District. They had an event, I believe it was last month, with their directors and some of the folks they all work with, and it was a very nice event, and also just a continuing partnership between all the entities that are involved in the Lake Worth Lagoon. Were there as well, and it's great to see everybody working so well together, and had an opportunity to socialize and hear about what was going on. So with that, I'm going to try and go around this virtual room we have here normally, and for introductions on who is with us this afternoon. And I will start with Mr. Mitchell.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Matt Mitchell, Environmental Manager with Palm Beach County's Environmental Resources Management Department.
And Mr. Steinley.
Hi, everybody. Jay Steinley, Governing Board Member, South Florida Water Management District.
Ms. Bonilla.
Yes, hi, this is Yvette Bonilla from the South Florida Water Management District.
Great. And Ms. Anderson.
Hi, this is Alicia Anderson with Palm Beach County ERM. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Ms. Klarman.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Phyllis Klarman. I'm with the Water Management District, and I am the Water Resources Working Group Lead for the initiative.
Great. Ms. McCorkle, and welcome, by the way.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sherry McCorkle, and I'm the new regional rep covering all of the Palm Beaches. Thanks for the introduction.
Oh, we're glad. Look forward to having an opportunity to meet with you in person at some point. But welcome to the Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative Steering Committee.
Thank you
very much. Let's see, going down the line, Ms. Stewart.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Stewart with Festival Management Group. We're the event production company producing the annual Lagoon Fest.
Very exciting. We're looking forward to the update, and we're only a couple of week and a half out now, so very exciting. And I'm sorry, who do we have from Florida Inland Navigation District? I know Charlie's not here.
Yep, Charlie had a last minute change of plans. So this is Janet Zimmerman. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for Florida Inland Navigation District.
Well, thank you, Janet, and thanks again for a wonderful event. And Ms. Bishop.
Everybody, good afternoon. I'm Julie Bishop with Palm Beach County I'm a division director there and handling Lake Worth Lagoon issues. It's our favorite thing to do, restoration. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Glenn.
Good afternoon, it's Lawrence Glenn. I'm with the South Florida Water Management District, and I am the director of the Water Resources Division.
Great.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. From my office, we have Mr. Heimrichs.
Hey, everybody, this is Niels. I work for County Commissioner Greg Weiss.
And Ms. Baez.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Jennifer Baez with Palm Beach County and I lead our Habitat Working Group.
Good afternoon. Mr. Radcliffe.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Richard Radcliffe, Executive Director with the Palm Beach County League of Cities.
Good afternoon. Ms. Pigman.
Good afternoon. I'm Libby Pigman. I'm the Regional Representative Supervisor for South Florida Water Management District.
Great, thank you. And Mr. Chase.
Good afternoon. I'm Ed Chase. I'm the Palm Beach County Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, and I also serve as the county's legislative director on an interim basis, I hope.
We hope so too, I guess. All right, I think I have all of our participants. Did I miss anybody?
Yes, Commissioner, joining is Michael Stahl with Palm Beach County Deputy Director, and also with me.
Hi, it's Deb Drum, Department Director for Palm Beach County Pleasure to see everybody online today.
Great. I apologize. Did anybody else? Okay.
Myra Ashton with Palm Beach County is here too. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Myra. All right. So I guess we'll start with our, if there are any comments from committee members, we'll open that up. All right, not hearing any. Let's move on to item number 3, our legislative update. And this is over to Deb, and I guess Ed, if you want to give us an update.
Actually, I apologize for the agenda not being updated, but Ed was available today and he'll be giving this update. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Happy to do this. So we have taken here at the Intergovernmental Affairs Office, we have taken the Lagoon Initiative's 6 priorities, and we have found legislative homes for them to be inputted and sponsored into the appropriation system. So all of the funding requests, all of the individual requests have been sponsored by Representative Mike Caruso, except for one, and that is the one from the town of Lake Clark Shores, the Westwater Quality Improvement Project. That was clearly in the district of Representative Silvers, so I called his office and gave him the opportunity to sponsor that, and he snapped that right up. So just 2 items on that particular legislative request. We did have to change the name on the title of that request. It was initially the MICA Westwater Quality Improvement Project. The House of Representatives Appropriations Committee doesn't like acronyms in their titles, especially acronyms that we had to search to kind of find out what it stood for. So once we found out it stood for the 4 streets in that immediate area, we suggested that they just kind of take that right out of the title, and they did, and everyone was happy. So that one has been filed, and it's already been given a bill number in the House. So that bill number is 2161, 2161. So we can follow that in the House. On the Senate side, the initiative request is submitted once as a total initiative request. So there's not 6 different requests in like there is in the House. In the Senate, there's just one main initiative request, and that was put in and sponsored again by Senator Lori Berman. So that is making its way through the Senate. So sort of the next steps as we see them here, we've done what we need to do to get them uploaded in both the House appropriation system and the Senate appropriation system. In the House system, we will need a attestation form signed by the applicant of each one of those 6 bills. So I spoke with Deb Drummond. We'll get that form to those people. So once we receive those forms and the House member has those forms in hand, it's at that point that the Appropriations Subcommittee will actually hear that bill. So remember, in the House, they don't hear individual appropriation bills anymore. It's sort of each committee meeting. All these appropriation bills are heard on a consent agenda. So as long as we can get on that subcommittee and committee consent agenda and it passes, we'll be good. On the Senate, it takes a while to go through the process, but Senator Berman will go ahead and shepherd that through the process. So that's kind of where we stand and what our next steps are going to be. Deb, if you have anything else, I will turn it over to you.
I don't have anything to add except for that we do have the attestation forms in progress. And Ed, I do have one question for you on that. Do we need to get that form for the Lake Clark Shores project, or have they already submitted it because they've already have a House bill?
They must have already submitted it. I will just double check on that.
Okay, I just wanted to double check. Yeah, and yes, the rest of the forms are in process. We'll have those to you, definitely by tomorrow, probably.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all.
And this is Matt Mitchell. Just another update. As of this morning, we received all 3 attestation forms from the other municipalities. So the counties are ready, as are the 3 other municipalities.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Great. Well, thank you. Ed, any other questions or comments for Ed? Hearing none. Moving on. Thanks again, Ed. I think something we're all very interested in getting caught up and excited about, which is the upcoming Lagoon Fest. And so Alicia and Nancy, do you want to take us through where we're at?
Well, can I just chime in for a minute? I am very proud and pleased to introduce Nancy Stewart. She's gonna take over this section and share with you all about Lagoon Fest 2021, but she has been instrumental in bringing this from a grassroots effort of connecting people with the lagoon to a real event, and we're proud to be a part of it, and we're very fortunate to have her on board helping us, and very professional. So go ahead, Nancy.
Well, thank you, Alicia. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know, can you see the screen that I'm sharing? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're really excited to inform all of you that the event is growing. This is the first year that Lagoon Fest will be a standalone event and not partnered with the city of West Palm and their West Palm Beach Green Market. What this means is that many of the city costs and deposits are no longer waived for the event, and we're able to now engage food vendors, secured paid sponsors such as automotive, et cetera, that we were not permitted to engage in prior years. Moving forward, we anticipate that the cost of the event will continue to increase as the event continues to grow, expanding on the space that we actually are permitted from the city. But Lagoon Fest has been a free event for all the nonprofit organizations that participate, in that we do not charge a fee for their booth, nor do they get their tent rental package waived and paid for through the Lagoon Fest budget. As this event continues to grow in size, we'll more than likely see a need to either secure additional funding or charge nonprofits for the tent rental package fees. Those equate to about $120 per participant. So that's where a majority of the budget that and the city costs are incurred. Let me go to the load-in map. One of the things that we're doing this year to streamline the load-in and avoid traffic jams is that we have set up arrival times for load-in, which is dictated by the booth numbers. If you go back to the site plan here, we enter from the south off of Okeechobee and head north on South Flagler Drive. So the booth numbers at the top will be the first to load in, followed by the midsection, and then finally the booth numbers, like the highest numbers on the south side, will be the last to load in. We require that everybody pulls up. We will escort them to their space, but we require that they unload, go park, and then come back to set up. It's a really fast load in. We start at 6 o'clock, and we're working in unison with the load in of the green market. So we're hoping that this will streamline, the in and out traffic for load in. We do have some entities that are coming and loading in on Friday night as we close the street at 7 o'clock that night. Parking map. Our parking map, again, Lagoon Fest is located on between Fern and South Clematis Drive. People will exit up north to Banyan Boulevard and circle around to go to park at either the Banyan Garage or the Avernia parking garage. We do not have any reserved parking spaces, and I'm not really sure. I know that used to be the Green Market did not charge during the morning hours. I'm not really sure. I apologize. I hadn't confirmed that with them, but I'll go back here. So back to the site map. We're really happy that we have a lot of activation on the dock this year. This will be our 4th year, minus the COVID year of 2020, that we've worked with producing this event. And so we have some new people on board this year. We have Palm Beach Sailing Club that will be doing free sailing excursions and little mini lessons. We have the free Aqua Adventures boat tours that take a tour of the lagoon and explain about the projects that are happening through the county and and then we have the U.S. Coast Guard auxiliary boats and Gari Foundation. In addition, this year is the first year we have the Visit Palm Beaches on board, where they'll have the catamaran cruises. There is a charge for adults for this particular cruise, but children that show their student ID or if they're under 12 years of age will not be charged. And then Visit Palm Beach is also sponsoring the kayak cleanup tour again this year, where they provide the kayak and the paddles and the nets and things for the kayak cleanup. All of these activities are on a first come, first served basis, except the Aqua Adventures boat tour and the Visit Palm Beach. They do have a sign up sheet at their where they'll be docked, and then Visit Palm Beach has an online link that you can reserve in advance. So we went over that catamaran tour. Our kids zone, we're excited about our kids zone this year. We have a lot of extra activities for kids. Pitching games and kids casting, face painting, all that is still back on board. And then we have some yard games. There's a mural painting area that the kids can participate in and such. Okay, look where I'm at now. All right, marketing. Quite an amount of extensive marketing has gone into this year. In addition to the website, we began our weekly e-blast last week. We created a digital share plan where we create images and distribute it to all of our sponsors and participants so that they have images and content that they can grab and then share on their social media pages to kind of expand the reach. There were rack cards printed and distributed throughout the county. Then we had full page ads in the Atlantic Avenue magazine in Delray, and I think a half page ad in the Coastal Angler. In addition to that, we did about 45 online web postings about the event, and then had a direct mail to 66,000 plus residents, I believe it was. One of the other things that we use for a twofold purpose is a text alert campaign. We use a text alert system software to be able to communicate for safety alerts if there's a missing child, if there's an extreme weather alert, and also to communicate to any of our participants about loadout and instructions on when to tear it down. But what we did in addition to this is we also use it as a marketing tool, and we do a text to win promotion on social media where if you enter to win, if you put your phone number, if you text in the number, I'm sorry, and you text the word Lagoon Fest, you're entered in to win a prize of a canvas bag, 2 free drink tickets, a calendar print that's going to be on foam court, and of course a Lagoon Fest calendar. We do this primarily to build our email database for future marketing to people and to kind of get a little bit of a feel of the demographics and where we're pulling people from. So a lot of our events, one of the events we do for Garlic Fest, we got about 6,000 new email addresses last year leading into this. Especially, it works really well if you have something to give away. But then what's the last thing? Oh, another new thing we did this year, we use an online registration system for our vendors, and we implemented the online vendor application and volunteer registration this year. And it seemed to go pretty well. Everybody adapted to it pretty easily, but it's a really easy way for us to we're able to assign booth spaces through that, print out our site plans. We can communicate what their shirt sizes are. We get their contact, and we can communicate directly through the software. The participants also have the ability to go online, and all of the documents that we have as far as the site plans, the volunteer job descriptions, the schedules, any kind of documents that they were provided are also available on line at this program. So they have access to parking maps and things like that through the app. And then finally, in this area right here, I don't have it marked, but it's the intersection of Datura and South Flagler Drive. We're inviting all the elected officials to meet with us in that intersection a little before 11 o'clock for a photo op, and also to prepare for the bird release that will be done by Bush Wildlife Sanctuary. So we most likely will do it right in this area here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but directly across from the Lagoon Fest logo. It's a big area for people to gather. So Bush Wildlife's able to kind of do it off of the seawall there as they have in prior years. And then our down where the volunteer check-in is in the backstage of the Meyer Amphitheater, we have use of the backstage area, which is stage for our volunteer hospitality. We have meals being provided and sponsored by the new Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza location, which is on Okeechobee Boulevard 995 this year. And we have hospitality there for all the volunteers and staff. And it's a place where you can come back and refill your water bottles, use the restrooms, etc. So I know that's a lot. That's all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me or if there's anything else you'd like to see documentation-wise, but feel free to let me know.
Great. Well, thank you for the comprehensive update. It's really exciting. Are there any questions?
Awesome.
I'm not hearing. I did look up while you were speaking. The Green Mart or the city provides free parking at the Avernia and City Center garages till noon on
Okay, perfect.
Saturday.
Perfect.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you. We're looking forward to it, and at 11 a.m. and let's see if we can get a crowd there for pictures and the release.
Perfect.
All right. Habitat Working Group.
Wonderful. This is Jennifer Baez. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. There we go. We held our Habitat Working Group meeting earlier this month. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this slide. Oh, there we go. Okay. And I wanted to highlight one of the projects that was presented out at our Habitat Working Group meeting. This is a partnership project between FWC, the West Palm Beach Fishing Club, FAU, and Palm Beach County. And Lake Worth Lagoon was identified as a gap in the Florida Atlantic Coast telemetry network, which includes over 900 acoustic telemetry receivers throughout the eastern portion of the state of Florida, both offshore and within estuaries. So our sister estuaries are included in this network of data, and that includes Biscayne Bay, St. Lucie, Locks River. And so it was understood that there is this gap in data to see how organisms move either oceanside or utilize the lagoon. And so the West Palm Beach Fishing Club, through their charitable arm, was able to purchase 12 acoustic receivers to embark on coverage within Lake Worth Lagoon. And this project is going to complement ongoing fisheries monitoring efforts that we already have in Lake Worth Lagoon. So before I go too much into the project, I just wanted to provide a little bit of information on the technology. So this is a passive acoustic telemetry project where species are purposefully targeted for capture, and a minor surgery is performed and a tag is inserted into the body cavity of the individual. And the tag pings every 30 to 60 seconds. And when a fish swims near within the detection range of a receiver, the tag number and the time that it swam by is recorded. So detection of these receivers, detection ranges of these receivers do vary by substrate, waves, energy, noise such as boat wake, and depth of the water. But typically, if a tagged fish swims within 300 to 600 meters of a receiver, they are detected. So before we deployed these 12 receivers, decisions had to be made on where we would place them. So we evaluated the different habitats of the lagoon, such as our mangrove seagrass habitats, artificial reefs, hard bottoms, open sandy bottoms, and seawalls, which really isn't a habitat, but it's a reality here for Lake Worth Lagoon. And we've selected the northern part of the lagoon as initial placement for these 12 receivers because it actually has all of these different habitat types. And receivers were deployed by FWC in Palm Beach County in late April. These locations were selected to ensure that there was no gaps in receiver coverage. And we specifically didn't want gaps because we didn't want any fish or other tagged organisms to move through the area undetected. This is our deployment effort, and prior to deploying these receivers, bases and brackets were designed and created to ensure both that the stability and the security of the receivers, but also the ease for maintenance on them. So a few months later, in early August, we went out to do a maintenance check on them, ensure battery life was okay, to make sure that they weren't fouled up too much by marine organisms, and of course to download our data. So this is what we looked like, our receivers looked like, both the bracket and with the green background and the base that was created all the way on the right. So we have 12 receivers out. What are we trying to capture now? So we worked with FAU, and we have two graduate students actually that are working on their PhD that wanted to do a specific study looking at mutton snapper within Lake Worth Lagoon. So we wanted to make sure that we were evaluating some type of indicator species. So you don't just go out and tag anything and see where it moves, which is also a very cool method, but it'll get real expensive real fast to find out not a lot of useful data. So we wanted to make sure that what was evaluated is some type of indicator species. And this indicator species means that it's relevant to the ecosystem, that it exhibits a predictable response due to a system driver, and that it would be maybe even an early warning sign of an ecological change. So both mutton snapper and green sea turtle have been tagged due to those attributes. The mutton snapper is a habitat generalist. It has a variety of diet And it also is a popular fishery species, where a green sea turtle is very habitat dependent on a seagrass habitat, and it has a specific diet. And it also is an indicator of the health of the lagoon. So here's a little bit of data. I'm not going to overwhelm you guys with it, but between the April deployment and the August data download, we had only tagged one individual at that time, and that was one mutton snapper. So between those 4 months, it was actually about 3.5 months, we had 15 unique detections throughout the lagoon. And the color code does match with the locations, if you can see, very, very tiny, but that's not the main point. The main point is that we had one tagged fish and we still received 15 other detections from other individuals. So I've started combing through the data thanks to FWC, and we have right now confirmed 10 of those 15 animals. So one of them is the mutton snapper that FAU tagged, but we also received detections by 4 tarpon that were tagged by the Bonefish Tarpon Trust. And to my knowledge, they're only tagging in Boca Grande Pass on the west coast of Florida. I have reached out to them asking if they can confirm the location that those tarpon were tagged. We've also received detections by 2 different Jack Crevalles that FIU tagged. We received a detection of a bull shark that was tagged by FIU, 1 tiger shark that was tagged by FIU, and then another unknown shark species that tagged, but they only tag bulls, great hammerheads, or nurse sharks. So we're still parsing out the other 5 detections. I don't have individuals on that. But since this data download in August, we have deployed 7 more tags, and 3 of those went on to green sea turtles, and 4 of them were also on mutton snappers. So we're both looking at what our interests in ecological use of the mutton snapper and the green sea turtles, but we're also collecting a whole bunch of data on other organisms that are being studied by universities throughout the area. So the next steps for this project are to continue exploring why these sentinel species are moving throughout the lagoon. Something that FAU was specifically interested in is, what are the drivers of a mutton snapper? Why are they spending certain times in one area of the lagoon versus another area? So we can track their movement, but they also purchased temperature and salinity loggers that they deployed on 3 of the acoustic receivers. And they're going to correlate that environmental data of salinity and temperature as a potential driver for the movement of these mutton snappers throughout the discrete habitats in the lagoon. And we also want to understand why they're utilizing certain habitats in certain areas, maybe seasonal use or maybe a different other driver. And then long term, we're hoping to continue to develop partnerships with other research entities who want to tag other species in the lagoon to understand what else is using different areas and why they're using it. And of course, you always want something bigger and better. We want to expand this receiver network down to the central lagoon. And eventually, I should have put this on here, we would love the whole lagoon to be able to capture this type of movement data. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this project.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jen. Are there any questions for Jennifer?
Hey, Jennifer. Hi, it's Jay Steinley. Thanks for that report, Jennifer. Just wondering, the mutton snapper, if it's only one, maybe I misheard. Did you tag one, or you were only able to identify one? I'm just wondering that in the context of why that species was chosen.
Yes, so at this time we have 5 tagged mutton snapper. They were purposefully tagged. It actually, the tags were a part of a fishing effort that the West Palm Beach Fishing Club led, where they did a fishing tournament for science and asked all the anglers in their membership to come out and fish on 2 different days to catch juvenile muttons. and we tagged them and then released them. But the mutton snapper was selected because it's a sentinel species in the sense that it uses a wide variety of habitats, all of which are found in the northern part of the lagoon. It's very sensitive to salinity and temperature changes, so it'll move through different areas depending on the changes in salinity and temperature. And we know that it's within the lagoon, and so we want to see these drivers that move it. We also know that they're aggregation spawners, which means that there's a connectivity to our offshore reef environment. So when they're adults, they actually move out of the estuary, go to our offshore reefs and spawn in large populations. So we're hoping that we'll see both their use within the lagoon and what's moving them between those habitats, but then also see that transition as they grow up to moving offshore. And there are receivers offshore, so we'll be able to actually see that change.
Terrific, thanks.
You're welcome.
I mean, this is just fascinating work you all are doing. And I guess, Mike, I have a question. And that, what is the cost of the receivers, and how many would we need to finish off the lagoon?
The receivers are about 2,000 to 2,500 each. So I don't know, I haven't done the calculation of how many we would actually need. It would be quite a lot. I'm just trying to think, maybe 50. I don't know how many, how many we would precisely need, but like I said, the West Palm Beach Charitable Arm, the fishing club's arm, donated these, and I think the total amount was about $26,000 or $28,000 for the 12 receivers.
And then the other question would be is if we were able to get them, do we have the bandwidth to do the maintenance and collect the data if we were to be able to expand it, or would we need to look for funding, annual funding to do that as well?
That's a great question, Commissioner Weiss. Right now, this is a true handshake partnership that's occurring where FWC is doing the maintenance and Palm Beach County is being an assistant to it and managing all of the data. We are in early conversations right now for potentially contracting FWC to long-term do that, or to be training our Palm Beach County staff to take over the maintenance of it. So I don't have costs on what it is, but they go out every 6 months to do the data download, change out batteries, and scrub down the receivers to ensure that they're not too foul to detect those tags. So you would need some type of staff or reoccurring funding to keep FWC paid to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Anyone else with any questions?
Just a quick follow-up comment. Can we, Jennifer? Can you get those numbers and can you share them with me?
Sure. I apologize. I can't see who's speaking, so I don't know.
It's Niels. It's Niels.
Oh, Niels. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I would be happy to get some of that information for you. So, and just to confirm, the information that you're looking for is the number of receivers we'd need throughout the lagoon, or in the cost of that, or the maintenance cost?
Right. The number of receivers, the cost of the receivers, and the operational cost for maintenance. Yes, all of it.
Okay. Absolutely. I'd be happy to put that together and send it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's exciting.
Jenny, hey, it's Tom Reinert.
Hey, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I apologize to the rest of the group. The link I had was bad, and it took me a while to eventually get the right one and join. So I joined late. But I wanted to speak to Commissioner Weiss's question, and you touched on it by naming some of the other species that were detected on receivers that you guys were, or our FWC was managing. And this whole fact array, it actually extends from actually Georgia all the way down the East Coast. And if there's another research entity, a local university that has an interest, out of maybe FAU, Steve Kajura, others who might have a research interest, they can join that group. And the beauty of this is that they're all using the same technology and all have a shared database. And when your fish hits on someone else's receiver, you get that data and vice versa. So it doesn't have to all be on one entity to fund some of this. So, reaching out to other individuals and entities to see if they have a research interest in the Lake Worth Lagoon could result in additional receivers out there at no cost to the county. But again, we've got to find those research partners.
Great. I really appreciate that, Tom.
You bring up a really good point. In Palm Beach County and our partner FWC and the Fishing Club, the idea was to initially build a framework. It's like building a home. You want to put that foundation there. And then we need to continue building those partnerships in hopes that other people bring something to the table. But the idea is that we had to have something seeded to make sure that we had the hook to bring them in. So hopefully, yes, the other receivers are deployed, but at the very least, we already know that people want to now tag, and the tags are about $350 a pop. So they're much more easy to swallow on getting some organisms tagged, but hopefully they'll also be adding receivers to this network.
Right, Jenny. And basically the cost of admission is you've got to put some receivers that you maintain out there. But if, you guys have 10 or 12 receivers out there. But for 10 or 12, if fish that you tag wind up in the Indian River Lagoon, you're still going to get those data because your 10 or 12 receivers now has bought you entree to hundreds of receivers. And if you've got a migratory fish, and that's where the Bimini Biological Station their shark research, it pays off for them to maintain receivers because their sharks go all over the place. And like you said, I think you picked up some tiger sharks in there, and that wasn't tagged by you, that was tagged by someone in the Bahamas probably, but they move around. So price of admission to the fact array is a handful of receivers, but you get entree to so many more and can study wide-ranging species, but only really have to chip in for a handful of receivers. So it's a great concept that actually FWC is employing on both coasts now.
And the tiger shark was tagged at our inlet receiver, so I don't want you to freak out too much. And not that he might not go in the lagoon, but he was only detected at the receiver in the middle of the inlet. So you can still swim at our snorkel trail and around Peanut Island safely today.
Well, I feel much better. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Great. All right. Okay. Well, thank you once again. And now moving on to our water group.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Everyone, this is Phyllis Klarman. I'm just going to take a second to share my screen. Okay, and if someone just can give me confirmation whether you're able to see my introduction slide.
Can see it. Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again so much for the time today. Just a refresher for those of you who are newer that I see on the line. My name is Phyllis Klarman. I'm a senior scientist in the Applied Sciences Bureau at the Water Management District, and I'm the lead for the Water Resources Working Group. So I'm here today to provide a briefing on the presentations that we heard at our working group meeting, which was last Thursday. We met from 10 to 12 and heard some really good talks on Lake Worth Lagoon water quality. Some of this information is also available in the Lake Worth Lagoon Management Plan, which we'll be hearing more about later today, as well as some intersections with some work that's happening throughout the region, things like living shorelines, et cetera. So without further ado, I'll just jump right into it. So the first presentation that we saw on Thursday last week, Dr. Christopher Pizzelli of Coastal Ecosystems LLC, used to be a district employee, presented on an assessment of freshwater discharge into Lake Worth Lagoon and water quality from the period of record of 2007 to 2020. So in a previous meeting, you may recall my presenting on a data set that was analyzed from 2007 to 2015. So this is an updated period of record, basically, that includes that additional 5 years. So thankfully, Christopher Pizzelli was able to, I think was contracted by the county to analyze this for the management plan update. So the objectives of this analysis, you'll see here on the screen: evaluating discharge and flushing for Lake Worth Lagoon, assessing spatial patterns for multiple water quality variables, exploring trends and relationships for discharge and water quality, and deriving a stoplight system for chlorophyll A and total phosphorus. I won't give too much information on that last point just for sake of time today, but if anybody is interested in hearing more about that, I have information available and can connect you with Dr. Bizzelli. So first, just sort of a reintroduction. So of course, we all know where the Lake Worth Lagoon is located here in Palm Beach County. It runs 20 miles approximately from North Palm Beach down to Ocean Ridge and Boynton Beach. We have, if you see in this large inset map here, that the lagoon has these yellow dots which indicate grab sample sites that are collected on a monthly basis. And this is part of a cooperative agreement that the Water Management District and the Palm Beach County has together. So the district will analyze samples collected by the county, and then those are uploaded to our DB Hydro database. Not depicted here, but we also have just recently added an auto sampler at the S155 structure, which is located right here in the central lagoon. Hopefully you can see my little mouse indicating that. The C51 canal, this is where the largest contribution of freshwater releases comes from for the lagoon. And there's an auto sampler there that collects, there's an aggregate sample that's collected on a weekly basis and includes a number of parameters, but most notably and of interest to this group, I think, includes total phosphorus, total nitrogen, and other metrics. There's also 2 salinity sondes that have been deployed north and south of the C51 canal that is connected to the SCADA network. So it collects continuous monitoring of salinity, and that is transported through satellites and space and gets uploaded to our website on a very regular basis and can be looked at again from the DB Hydro page. Something that's really interesting, I just want to point out here, is the expansive watershed, which you could see outlined in the orange dashed line. The ratio of watershed to estuary is approximately 40-1. Comparing this to some of our sister estuaries, the St. Lucie estuaries, watershed to estuary size is about double that. Biscayne Bay's watershed to estuary size ratio is approximately 11-1, and Caloosahatchee is 54-1. And of course, each of these estuaries are of different size, and so this ratio is indicative of more or less impact from that watershed, namely freshwater releases on those systems. So just notably, Lake Worth Lagoon's watershed is quite expansive. One of the objectives of this study was to look at an updated view of Lake Worth Lagoon flushing rates. And so basically this is reflective of the turnover of the water within the estuary, how often it gets flushed. So I won't bore you with the intricacies of the graph and the calculations that are done for this, but you can see summarized below. The flushing rate is estimated for the entire lagoon, which incorporates the volume of water, the discharge into the lagoon of fresh water, ocean and estuary salinities. And it was estimated that flushing time ranges from 4 to 16 days, depending on dry and wet season conditions, and that it's dominated by discharge in the wet season. So a flushing time of 4 to 16 days is pretty fast compared to some other systems that are more lagoonal but are much larger or don't have access to an inlet where the ocean and the tidal influence can help sort of move that water out, and depending upon, of course, how much fresh water they're getting. So 4 to 16 days on average in wet and dry seasons. What you see here on this slide, don't get too encumbered with all of the dots, but essentially what this is showing is a number of different water quality parameters, including C51 inflow, salinity, chlorophyll A, total nitrogen, turbidity, total phosphorus, and total suspended solids over that period of record. This shows from 2008 to 2020. And really what I want to point to is the red trending line on each of these graphs. And this is indicative that over this period from 2008 to 2020, we see an increasing trend in the central segment of the lagoon where the C51 outputs into the lagoon, an increasing trend in chlorophyll A, in total nitrogen, total phosphorus, total suspended solids, and turbidity. So all of these measures have been increasing over that approximately 13 12-year time frame. Again, don't bother too much with the numbers. It's here if you're interested. But regarding water quality, some major findings are summarized there on the right. So freshwater discharge was correlated to chlorophyll A, total nitrogen, and total phosphorus in all three segments of the lagoon, so the north, central, and southern segments. So what this means is that when discharge, freshwater discharge increases, so does chlorophyll, total nitrogen, and total phosphorus. Total phosphorus, chlorophyll, and total nitrogen are correlated to each other in all three segments. So as one increases, the other one also increases. Total phosphorus and total suspended solids are correlated to turbidity in the central lagoon. So when total phosphorus increases, so does turbidity. And when total suspended solids increases, so does turbidity. And that's in particular referencing to the central lagoon. Interestingly, turbidity and total suspended solids are not strongly correlated in the northern part of the lagoon and the southern end of the lagoon. And finally, total suspended solids are not correlated to discharge. So another interesting finding from this data set. So overall, just summary and significance of this data. Again, water quality in the north and south segments benefit from proximity to inlets. So that's going back to that flushing rate. So thanks to those influences from the ocean, the water can be flushed out or essentially turned over or cleaned if it's essentially over a shorter time frame. And so some of these trends that we're seeing in the central lagoon, which is furthest away from those inlets, is not necessarily felt in the north and south segments. C51 is contributing to the declining water quality in the central segment, as indicated by the increasing trend in all of those parameters mentioned before. Chlorophyll, total nitrogen, total phosphorus, total suspended solids, and turbidity is increasing in the central segment, as I said. And chlorophyll A, total nitrogen, and total phosphorus are correlated to discharge, freshwater discharge, and to each other in all three segments. And currently, there's no seasonality for total suspended solids and turbidity, and is not correlated to discharge. Next, we received a presentation from Scott Thoreau, who is a Water Management District employee, and he provided a summary of the nutrient loading program and gave a walkthrough of the DB Hydro insights. And so the nutrient loading program, I just wanted to mention the auto sampler that has been uploaded or installed at the S155 structure at the terminus of the C51. Again, the largest contributor of freshwater inflow to the lagoon, has contributed to the DB Hydro Insights page, which I will show shortly here. And so again, Scott gave us a walkthrough of this new DB Hydro Insights platform. And this is what the website looks like. Anybody can access this, anyone from the public, agencies, and we could provide the link in the chat to this website when I'm done speaking. But you can see here that if you were to search for Lake Worth Lagoon on this website, what it does initially is it brings up this really cool watershed lens outlook. So you'll see a current conditions of Lake Worth Lagoon. Some of these parameters currently have an NA on there just because they're working on getting this updated. And this will include surface water inflow, surface water outflow, and rainfall, for example. And it also shows you here on the right-hand side a map and the extent of the watershed that is observed within this network, as well as some data regarding the land usage, including the total land use in acres and percentage of area for urban and built environments, water, upland forests, you name it. Water bodies, so the contributing water bodies here. I can't scroll down because this isn't a live screen on the website, it's just a snapshot, but down further, there's information regarding monitored structures. And so there are several of those, including the S155, which I'll show you an example of that data available on this insights page in just a second. And then key parameters. So all of the water quality parameters that are measured as part of this network is listed on this watershed lens. Finally, if you wanted to look at some of this data at a particular structure, this is an example snapshot from October of this year. You'll see on the right-hand side a map. This is where the S155 structure is located. This is near the central lagoon. So just east of here off map is where the C51 sort of ends and enters into the lagoon proper. You could see here on the left a snapshot of data and current conditions at that time. So the conditions that are listed here largely vary on how often a particular parameter is measured or collected. But you'll see that in here, the rainfall is included, the last 72 hours of total rainfall that is measured by radar versus a gauge. Total inflow, a current flow rate into the lagoon, as well as a 7-day flow volume that is based on the measure here says midnight minus 7 days. This includes a total load calculation from the previous day. So this includes total phosphorus and total nitrogen. And then this here, the 3 controls, this is just indicating the actual gates, the structures within the S155 there and their current, whether they're open and closed. And then it includes, of course, summaries of all the parameters that we're interested in, including chlorophyll, phosphate, nitrogen, and there's other things here like headwater elevation and others here, and then other parameters you can find here. And all of this stuff can be downloaded. You can either download it directly to your computer in the form of a CSV or Excel spreadsheet, or you can have this platform actually develop or derive some tables, summary tables for you, depending on what water quality parameters you're really interested in looking at. So this is really more for, I think, the technical side of the technical audience, people who might be interested in digging into the data. But this is, I think, a huge improvement based on the previous platform and ease of access of data. So if there's any questions about this, I'm happy to answer. And I think there will be some training opportunities in the future. I don't have any dates in mind just because I think we're still sort of feeling things out with COVID response. But Brian Turcott, one of our data stewards at the Water Management District, has led these trainings before. And if you keep an eye out on our website, the district's website, those will be announced in due time. And finally, we had a presentation from a PhD student, Marbelis Garriga, out of Florida International University, on the quantification of water quality regulation capacity of mangrove urban ecological infrastructure in South Florida. And what was really nice about this presentation is we saw some obvious overlaps between the previous 2 things, looking at water quality and specifically some sites that she'll be observing in the lagoon in her study area, and then some actual comparisons to another sister system, which I'll get to in a minute. So regarding mangrove urban ecological infrastructure, the first thing I thought of in the context of Lake Worth Lagoon and all of the restoration projects is, of course, all the living shorelines and the habitat restoration that the county has been working on. So urban ecological infrastructure, this is a term that refers to all parts of a city that support ecological structures and functions, as well as ecosystem services that affect human outcomes and well-being. And so you could see the range of urban ecological infrastructure here, from living shorelines, things that are vegetation only, all the way to the other extreme, gray or harder armoring techniques such as bulkheads and seawalls. And I think someone from the county, please correct me if this estimate is not correct, but I think the shoreline characterization study that was recently done, and I think reported at a previous steering committee meeting, estimates somewhere 70-something% of the shoreline in Lake Worth Lagoon is armored using these gray infrastructure techniques, largely by seawalls. And so the research questions that Ms. Garriga will be exploring in her doctoral dissertation include: how do different components of this mangrove urban ecological infrastructure influence nutrient uptake and water quality regulation? So one of the great things about these living shorelines and mangroves and other organisms that live in these structures is that they can help cycle water quality. They uptake nutrients. They can also improve water quality directly on the rocks. For example, you can have oysters which filter water and can clean it of nutrients and suspended particles. So what she wants to measure is how do these different examples of urban infrastructure that we have compare? How do nutrient dynamics vary among the coastal mangrove urban ecological infrastructure and hardened shoreline features across different water sources? So again, looking at the hard armoring compared to the green living shoreline type infrastructure, and how do these compare across water sources, including from stormwater, canal water, and bay water or ocean water in the case of Lake Worth Lagoon. And here she specifically mentions Biscayne Bay, but she's looking to expand into Lake Worth Lagoon as well. Whether the full extent of Biscayne Bay's development urban coastline were to be hybridized using Rhizophora mangle, this is the scientific name for the red mangrove, which you can see pictured on the left, what would be the contribution of water quality regulation to nutrients in these systems? And so again, she is looking to expand into Lake Worth Lagoon. And I thought this was an opportunity actually we could flip back to Dr. Bazzelli's presentation shared earlier. He did a similar study looking at water quality trends in the northern Biscayne Bay, and he highlighted some similarities between the Lake Worth Lagoon and northern Biscayne Bay. Just running through a couple of these, both are highly urbanized watersheds. They have very similar bathymetry, so the depth of the lagoons are very similar. They have hardened shorelines. There are 3 main sources of freshwater inputs through canals. They started to experience some seagrass loss around the same time period in 2013. We do have increasing trends in some of those water quality parameters like total phosphorus and total nitrogen. Similar trends are seen in both systems. And of course, I think this meant to be tongue in cheek, but there's Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade Derm. So he just wanted to point that out for fun. But ultimately, what this study will hopefully provide to us, and Ms. Garriga said she would come back to our working group and present to us at a later date her findings. But she hopes that this project will complement other current efforts to help improve water quality in the Lake Worth Lagoon and northern Biscayne Bay. Experiment results may contribute to a site suitability index report for mangroves and oysters. And so this is to help target specific areas that may have bad water quality, and in which case this type of infrastructure could help to improve if they were implemented there. And then additionally, runoff modeling should be considered with influence of sea level rise and warming temperatures. So if she hasn't already, I mentioned to her that Palm Beach County has an Office of Resiliency, and sea level rise is, of course, one of the big things we're going to be looking at into the future. A lot of uncertainty around what will happen with that and with climate change. So with that, I'll stop there for questions, and thank you again for giving me the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Phyllis. Are there any questions for Phyllis?
Yes, this is Julie Bishop with Palm Beach County I just really wanted to thank Phyllis. This was really one of my favorite water resources working group meetings. Really seeing the result of this partnership of the initiative because of the addition of the auto samplers that you all fought to get installed in our partnership with, collecting the water quality data. This is really becoming, and the DB Hydro Insights, and, thank you for going through all that. I think the auto samplers have been in 18 months and already, we're starting to see a picture of what's happening in the lagoon on a scale we've never seen before. And really now with the addition also of what Jenny's doing with the fishery data that we're collecting, we're getting a good picture of the physical and biological factors and what's going on in the lagoon. I just really applaud you all and thank you.
Thanks, Julie. And I actually want to thank Eric Anderson of the county for putting me in touch with Marbellis and others who were able to present at this meeting. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you. Is there any other questions for Phyllis?
This is Jay Steinle. I have a couple questions. Actually, a clarifying question. So the 4 to 16 days, Phyllis, can you you might have said, but can you compare that to other estuaries? I think you said that's a shorter and quicker flushing period. Is that correct?
Yes. So 4 days for a flushing rate for an estuary is pretty fast. I don't have with me on hand a comparison based on maybe the St. Lucie estuary, for example, but I can certainly get that information for you.
Well, and then I probably should know this answer, but a quicker flushing is correlated to a higher nutrient or lower nutrient input. In other words, if there's flash flooding, I would assume there's a quicker, more efficient carry of nutrients to the output areas. Is that correct?
Yes, so basically what this water quality data showed us was that correlation between discharge into the lagoon and things like total phosphorus and total nitrogen. So you've got that exactly right. What really influences the water quality ultimately, though, is that flushing rate and the location, proximity to some ocean inlet. And so in the central lagoon, where the C51 ends and where we get that largest contribution of fresh water, is the furthest away from the Palm Beach Inlet and the South Palm Beach Inlet than the northern and southern segments are. So the water quality is generally worse in that central region because it's the furthest away from the inlets. That northern and southern section, which are in proximity to those inlets, have that faster flushing rate because of the tides, as well as some influence from the releases themselves. There's a faster turnover of that water.
Okay, and sorry, I'm misunderstood. I'm confusing the matter. So when you said 4 to 16 days, and you're talking about flushing rate, you're talking about flushing rate within the lagoon. I was thinking you were talking about the rate at which the basin flushes into the lagoon. That is something separate entirely, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And then the other comment or a comment I wanted to make is, and obviously I know being close to the S155 that the C51 is always, we have less flushing in the center part of the lagoon, central part of the lagoon. C51 is right there, is typically associated with lake water flow. And so I know most people on this call know this, but just to mention, lake releases to the lagoon have diminished. I'm not going to say they're gone. We will always, as we do with St. Lucie and Caloosahatchee, need to release in certain lake and rain periods, but they have diminished significantly over the past 3+ years. So I just want that kept in mind. It doesn't make our challenges any easier because obviously we've got basin runoff issues, which are directly correlated to rainfall and other things. But I just wanted to, as we talk about that central loading, it has certainly been, the conditions have been exacerbated in the past by Lake O outflow. Those have been diminished more recently, and with LOSUM, fortunately, that momentum seems to be continuing.
Anything else? Okay. Actually,
Yeah, this is Tom Reinert, if I can jump in real quick.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate what Jay said about the basin issues, and that is certainly the stuff that's in between Lake O and the Lake Worth Lagoon is likely contributing a lot to some of those nutrient inputs. What I was interested in was, and obviously these things are correlated, the total suspended solids and turbidity, that is not related to Lake O inflows. So that must be legacy sediments, fine sediments that remain in Lake Worth Lagoon. And I was curious about the status of the sediment trap in C51. Seems that it's working, at least to the extent that it's reducing sediment and turbidity coming down the C51. Could someone from the county speak to that?
Tom, I can actually give a quick summary of the recent look at the C51 sediment trap, and
Great.
then I could welcome anyone from the county who wants to add anything. So there is an annual survey of the sediment trap that occurs, and basically what it's looking at is depth, and by the depth they can then calculate the net total accretion of sediment into the trap on that annual basis. So on an annual basis, it looks like there's a net positive accretion of sediments. But recently the Water Management District and we had presented on this at a previous meeting. So if you're interested in this information, I can share you the findings from this, Tom. There was an efficiency study, a very early stage preliminary study conducted by the district. They wanted to look at the efficiency rates of the sediment trap under different flow conditions. And so they were actually able to change the flows coming out of the S1, not the S155 structure, I'm sorry. So the upstream structure from the sediment trap, looking at different rates in CFS. And there were only a few samples, and so this isn't definitive yet, but of the samples that they were able to collect, I think the results showed that in excess of 400, 450 CFS or so, that there was a net exporting of sediments from the trap. So it really depends really what sort of temporal scale you're looking at. These were a very small number of discrete events that were measured compared to those annual surveys, which looks at a total net accretion over the year. And my understanding is that there will be some follow-up on this study moving forward on the district side, but just some early indicators of how effective the trap is, and will sort of dictate how the water management district moves forward with this in the future. And anyone else on the line who has any comments or anything about this, I'd welcome.
Yeah, this is Deb Drum from Palm Beach County ERM. And Tom, I would direct you to lwli.org. That's a simple, quick way to get to our management plan for Lake Worth Lagoon. And this particular item is on page 67 of 147 of that report. But if you go to the index of action plans, there's a specific link to sediment management that takes you to a good summary of this specific issue that you're asking about.
Oh, I've got it open now. Thank you, Deb. Appreciate that.
Yep.
All right, anyone else? All right, I just actually a couple things that I saw or had questions about, Phyllis. One was on the slides of, and I'm sorry I forgot the first scientist you referenced, but there was one trend line when you were showing that slide with all the different trend lines, and I think it was the second one that seemed to show a downward trend. That was the only one I noticed that, yeah, there it is, item B.
So that's salinity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so salinity within all estuaries is going to be highly variable, of course, and that's going to be influenced not just by ocean inlet proximity, but then freshwater releases. And so what you see here is a slight downward trend. I don't know whether this was a significant trend over the period of record, but yeah, there you go. It's salinity.
Okay, all right. I saw that, and I wanted to ask you about that. And then
Commissioner Weiss, if I could just add to that observation of the reduced salinity, another thing that the county has been in discussions with the water managers at the Water Management District about is how they're operating the S155A structure and how they do that in concert with the stormwater treatment areas. And that's an ongoing discussion because water operations and water management decisions that occur in the western part of the county, where really part of the watershed that ends up down the C51 is significant, maybe not statistically significant. I don't mean that in that way, but it is something that we need to look at to determine if that trend is something that is man-made or is it variable with rainfall.
That I appreciate that. Thank you for that as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking here, Commissioner. So here, I think this is when it says no trends in the central segment for salinity. I think this is just indicating it's not a statistically significant trend, although you do see that line sort of tipping downward slightly. So it's just not statistically significant.
Okay, and then when you were talking about the flushing, and this is a follow on to Mr. Steinley's question, in the range of 4 to 16 days for the entire lagoon, but I don't know if he went into specifically, from the central lagoon the C51, because I had heard other studies indicating that it's 21 days from the C51 to flush either north or south out.
Sure. So I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but this is, as you said, this is estimated for the entire lagoon. So this was an estimate for all of the lagoon, not just the north, south, or central segment. Because of the proximity to the inlets in the northern and southern segment, the flushing rate there is going to be faster than in the central lagoon. So this is on average flushing time ranging 4 to 16 days for the entire lagoon through the dry and wet seasons. So presumably we would expect a slightly higher flushing time in the northern and southern segments in proximity to the inlets, and then a longer flushing time in the central, just because that water has further to travel before it is able to reach the inlets.
Yeah, I think almost 10 miles in the central part, 8 miles, 8 to 10 miles.
Yeah.
And then just a follow on it as to, which I thought is sort of interesting. You would have, my hypothesis would have been that if we're putting less lake water in through the C51, the water quality would improve, and yet it continues to degrade. So was it better that we were getting lake water then? Was that keeping it cleaner?
Well, I don't know that I can speak to that entirely. So this analysis was looking at that longer period of record from 2007, 2008 timeframe all the way to 2020. And so what you're asking would be a more fine scale look at the water quality that we've had more recently with the Lake Worth Lagoon not receiving any lake water currently. So we would have to take a look at the data more closely in that shorter time period. And so this data, as it was presented, really can't speak to that.
It just sort of begs, to me, it just sort of begs that, because, following on again to Mr. Steinley's observation that the discharging has gone down over the last 3 years, and the expectation would have been, I would have thought, that it would have, would have improved the water quality, but maybe the water in the lake is actually cleaner than what's coming in from the watershed.
Yeah, I can't speak to whether it's better water quality from the lake versus the basin runoff. But I think that Lake Worth Lagoon initiative website that Deb referenced, if it's not still up there, I have access to this old report, but there was a report conducted or a study conducted in early 2000s, maybe 2004 or 5, that looked at sediment sourcing as well. So I think that could speak to probably the sediment sources from different areas, including the lake compared to the basin, for example. And then, of course, with that, we would see potentially increases in other measures here, as indicated by this relationship between, total nitrogen, total phosphorus, and the trend in increasing turbidity, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's all very fascinating, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Sure. My pleasure.
All right. Moving on. I think, Matt, you're going to be up next, and we have the Lake Worth Lagoon Management Plan.
I actually think we've got one more working group, the public outreach working group. So if Alicia, you're ready for your presentation,
I'm sorry.
I'm on deck.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, the agenda I had was a little different, but I did prepare a very brief presentation with you to share about our Lake Worth Lagoon Initiative public outreach. Let me share screen. And can we all see?
Alicia, it's not showing.
Not yet.
Okay, display settings. Let's see. Okay, wait a minute. Nope, that's not working. Let me try again. I have it on mine. Let me try another one. I
There.
hope it works because
It's
I
working
actually,
now.
it is great. Okay. Like I said, this was very brief and I am a picture intensive kind of presentation. I'd first like to, I know Nancy's probably gone now, but a shout out to her. Thank you very much for sharing with you all about Lake Worth Lagoon, the initiative and Lagoon Fest and all the work that's involved with that. We're very grateful to have her. So as she mentioned, 11 o'clock is a time for you all to come and join. It's a great photo op and to see the bird release. So I welcome you to come and bring your family, your friends, and I hope we'll see you there. I'm just throwing a couple more Lagoon Fest things up. You know, Laguna has invited some new friends as well as old friends. And one of those is Buddy the seahorse in the middle. And which is great because this year is the year of the seahorse. And because I have some water management district people here, I want to do a shout out to maybe Sherry. We haven't heard from Freddie, the alligator. So if maybe you can check and see what's going on with Freddie, we would love to have him at Lagoon Fest. Have him shoot me an email.
I think he died of heat exhaustion at the last one.
Oh, and I thought he had those little ice packs on inside. Well, maybe we can revive them or find another Freddie. Anyway, well, I hope maybe we'll hear from him soon. We still have a little bit of time. One thing I would like to share with you is about an outreach event that we actually had yesterday. And just a little background, you know, public outreach in the lagoon has changed over the last several years. We've kind of changed from doing more brochures and attending events and handing out educational information to more like an engaging, hands-on type of outreach, because we find it might reach fewer people, but it's definitely more effective, and we may inspire youth to be our next stewards, and we certainly engage a lot of the community. So this was an event that was our first time, and what we called this was Weeding for the Shorebirds. And it was an idea, Eric Anderson is one of the site managers here, doing these restoration sites in the lagoon. And one of the problems is a lot of the vegetation that grows over time. And you know that we have these shorebirds that have been nesting in these open areas. And sometimes you have to use weed control, and other times, you know, we all know doing our garden, we got to pull weeds. So we thought, well, a lot of these volunteers like to plant mangroves and plant the grasses. Maybe we can get them to remove some of these things to make a better habitat for these shorebirds. So we came together, and FWC loans us their kayaks. And this event, we put it out there and people signed up immediately. So yesterday was our trial to see if it worked, to see if it was overwhelming. And we had a dozen volunteers plus 4 staff. And we went out to what they call Bryant Bird Island. And we paddled out there, and here is Dave Carson in the background. And he gave us a little backstory of how the island was built and about the birds that came and nested, and how it's a challenge to keep these weeds down over time. And as you can see in the picture, the weeds, and shortly after, he pointed out which are good, which are bad, which needs to be removed. And so you can see right here where we paddled in, and this group got working right away. And it wasn't easy. I was out there with them. You had to shovels. Sometimes it was 2 or 3 of us, but pulling, digging, hauling, bagging. And this was that pesky tall sedge that had to get removed. As you can see, it wasn't just pulling little weeds. And after about a couple hours, we filled about 18 to 20 bags, which they hauled off the site because they didn't want any of that seed bank left over there. And this group of volunteers still had more energy. So we decided to paddle under that bridge over to one of the southern Snook Islands. And Dave said, well, let me just show you, this is a more challenging island. Maybe in another volunteer project, we can do this. This is just a quick picture of an after. They pulled all the weeds, and then we headed over to Snook. And he was just kind of showing us around. And of course, there was one of those big, tall Maho trees that you know is an exotic and that grows on a lot of our islands. And we just got to digging, and we had to cut and pull and cut. And you could see it took several of us. And oh, the joy that we finally got that up. And we were just kind of seeing at this island. But overall, we pulled some weeds over there, and maybe about another 10 to a dozen bags. And we thought we'll get to the rest of this island at another event that we're sort of planning in mid-November. That I really wanted to share that with you because that was a win-win situation. It's great to connect these volunteers with the scientists at ERM, and they get to share what they're doing. And, you know, we feel good about when we're doing something good for the environment, for these birds. And they've learned a lot about the nesting birds from Dave. This beautiful picture is a sneak preview of the cover of our Lake Worth Lagoon 2022 calendar, which you can pick up at Lagoon Fest. And this bird was actually photographed about a month ago in Lake Worth Lagoon. So that's the end of mine. I hope you enjoyed these pictures, and maybe I'll see one of you at one of these volunteer events. Any questions?
Hey, Alicia, this is Niels with Commissioner Weiss's office.
Hi, Niels.
Do you need more volunteers? Because I would love to spotlight this in our newsletter that goes to about 10,000 people. If you're looking for more volunteers.
Oh, well, first of all, I would like to share with you about Lagoon Fest.
That's gonna be in the next. That's already in there. Yep.
Oh, you already have all that stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
10,000 people is a little scary, but I will definitely share information with you as we create these events, and then you can share accordingly.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. It sounds like we have somebody who is maybe unmuted, getting some noise in the background. I think it may be from the B1 auditorium, but I could be wrong on that. All right. I think, Matt, we're up to you now.
All right, I'm up. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right, I've got a couple screens to share here. All right, first, we'll touch on this real quick. Wanted to thank everybody again for their assistance on the Lake Worth Lagoon Management Plan. We had a lot of really good impact and input from our stakeholders and from our partner agencies, so we really couldn't have pulled this off without everyone's help. It's actually gotten quite a bit of feedback, and we've gotten a lot of traction from it. I mean, even in this meeting, Tom might have been seeing it for the first time. So really been a success, and we're happy to share and continue to do so moving forward. We touched on a little bit in some of the working group meetings, but we did have the Board of County Commissioners adopt the update of the management plan in July. The previous version was adopted by 11 different municipalities, and I think the South Florida Water Management District as well. Most of these are part of the Lake Worth Lagoon Funding Request Program. We do have somewhat of a lofty goal to get most, if not all, of the municipalities within the watershed to adopt the management plan update, but we could certainly use all of yours help in sharing and promoting that idea. So moving on to the fun stuff. The Lake Worth Lagoon Science Symposium, I believe I first started talking to this group about this in 2019, when we talked about this being the next obvious step dovetailing from the management plan. So this was all prior to COVID. The symposium was originally expected to be either a run-up to the event or immediately on the heels of the management plan itself. COVID shut that down, but the idea didn't die. We certainly wanted this to be an in-person event. And having learned so much with Nancy of Festival Management and the consultant we worked with on the Lake Worth Lagoon management plan, we really wanted the symposium to be done by a pro. So the county has actually gone out and hired the University of Florida IFAS Office of Conferences and Institutes to run the Lake Worth Lagoon Science Symposium. So let me share one more screen. And this is where we hope to have some oohs and ahs. Does everybody see this?
Not yet, Matt.
No, we have not seen anything from your screens.
Neither screen?
No. There we
Yeah.
go.
Nice.
All right, so hopefully we're seeing the landing page to the symposium website.
We are.
Awesome. Okay, yes, the Office of Conferences and Institutes, they've been under contract for just about 2 months, and they have been an absolute pleasure to work with. But just yesterday, we finally got the sneak peek of the draft website. So this is what we have here. The event is targeted at this point for December 6th of 2022. We've got some initial text. We have some link to the management plan itself, so everybody can kind of cross-reference the importance between the plan and the symposium. This website will be continued to be built out as we get really in depth with the planning with OCI. We have benefits of attending. We have multiple ways to contact both us and IFAS OCI to get on the mailing list for the event. We have a very rough draft of an agenda at a glance. So all this is in the works. We've been working really hard in the background to kind of get this set up to be able to share with you. But on to the most important part of it, the sponsoring partner agencies. In early 2020, most of the Initiative Steering Committee partners received a request from Beach County looking for up to $7,500 each to sponsor this event. The county has already put in a significant amount of money, and the event is probably going to be in the $75,000 to $80,000 range. So the ask again to our partners is, we're hoping for $7,500. That would probably put this entire event in the black. And another benefit to that is by making this ask now for an event in 2022, there's not 1 but 2 fiscal years that funding can come from. So we're really going to lean on and hope that the partners can step up and help. I think we've typically had a pretty good track record of support, but this will be a really signature event for the Lagoon. And we want to get everybody out there helping as best we can. So the next steps before our next meeting, obviously, we need to nail down the venue. At this point, we are proposing the Riviera Beach Marina Event Center, which is right there conveniently on Lake Worth Lagoon. We're also in the process of finishing the sponsorship perspective, which we will share with all the partners and ask them to share as well. And then finally, we hope to make the website go live in early December, which will be 1 full year before the symposium. So we're really looking forward to getting that live and really want to make this event a success. That is all I have on the symposium. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Well, not hearing any, Matt, but it looks like you are well on your way of getting this put together for next year, and hopefully, you know, as they say, the Lord willing, and we don't flood, that we'll be able to do it. So I'm very hopeful we'll be in a much better place next year.
Same here. We had the opportunity to consider making this virtual during the height of COVID, and our networking is so important to this group that we really wanted to do everything we could to keep it in person. I mean, even this meeting, you know, without even having videos is somewhat impersonal. So we really pushed for in person. So hopefully in December of 2022, we're able to pull this off as planned.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the updates, Matt.
My pleasure.
All right. Moving on, I guess we're coming up to, I just, before we go to move to public comments, I just want to mention in the chat, Jennifer has put up a link to a video on the mutton tagging fishing event, and Phyllis has added a link for how to get access to DB Hydro Insights website. So they're both in the chat. All right. Moving on to public comment, I will open the floor for public comment. Fortunately, I can't see if you raise your hand, so if you'd like to make a comment, you're going to have to announce yourself.
Commissioner, I have no hands raised.
All right, well, thank you. All right, not hearing any, then we'll move to update or Sherry and letting us know about our upcoming meeting dates for next year.
Hi, thank you. Yes, we are looking at for 2022, February 16th, June 15th, and October 19th. Those are all on a Wednesday. Those are historically what was on the schedule for 2021. If there are no objections to those dates.
Can you say those dates one more time?
That would be February 16th, June 15th, and October 19th of 2022. And they would remain, that's a Wednesday.
So I can tell you February 16th, that is, there's a tentative legislative conference for us out of town that we're showing right now. So if that holds, I may not be able to attend on the 16th. And then let's look. 6:15. 6:15. I don't see anything for our board that's a conflict. And then 10:19. And 10:19 showing clear right now too. So.
Are there any other objections to those dates or?
Not hearing any others.
Oh, great. And that's all I had. We just had to make sure we got those dates picked out for the coming year.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank everybody I think this has probably been one of the most I shouldn't say that because they're all interesting and informative, but this was, I think and Phyllis, you mentioned it earlier, you know, with all the efforts that are being done and, you know, I think we're entering a new age of data collection and understanding the lagoon from a much more, I guess, more science, more data available, and watching you all work and listening to what everybody is looking at and studying. I think the community is going to be the beneficiary of all your work, of everybody involved here, and the collaboration that's been going on is something I'm really, really proud of. So I want to thank you all, and you can really, for me, I can really see the changes. I sort of looking back, I think it's been about 2.5 years that I've been involved, and to watch some of these changes take take effect. And you should all be very proud of yourselves and what you're accomplishing on behalf of Palm Beach County and, quite frankly, the globe for that matter. All right, not hearing anything else, anything for the good of the order before we adjourn?
Matt, you have
Commissioner?
your hand raised.
Yes, this is Matt Mitchell. I just wanted to give another welcome to Sherry and a special thank you to both Sherry and Yvette for helping out with this particular meeting. You know, we look to the district to help a lot with the coordination of this event, and we, you know, looking forward to working with you both more now that Laura has retired. But thank you again for setting this one up. Hopefully moving forward into 2022, we can be in the Stewart room and all be together face to face.
Great, thank you, Matt. And I share and ditto your comments. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, hearing none, then we will adjourn and everybody be well. And we will, hopefully we'll see you all at Lagoon Fest on the 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you.